All right, I'm going to read through the passage and questions for people who missed the summative and want to use the audio to help. So here we go. Fiction Summative Assessment. Directions. Read the short story Zoo by Edward D. Hawke. Refer to the short story to answer the questions below. Zoo by Edward D. Hawke. The children were always good during the month of August, especially when it began to get near the 23rd. It was on this day that the great silver spaceship carrying Professor Hugo's interplanetary zoo settled down for its annual 6-hour visit to the Chicago area. Before daybreak, the crowds would form, long lines of children and adults both, each one clutching his or her dollar and waiting with wonderment to see what race of strange creatures the professor had brought this year. In the past, they had sometimes been treated to three-legged creatures from Venus, or tall, thin men from Mars, or even snake-like horrors from somewhere more distant. This year, as the great round ship settled slowly to Earth in the huge Tri-City parking area just outside of Chicago, they watched with awe as the sides slowly slid up to reveal the familiar barred cages. In them were some wild breed of nightmare, small horse-like animals that moved with quick, jerking motions and constantly chattered in a high-pitched tongue. The citizens of Earth clustered around as Professor Hugo's crew quickly collected the waiting dollars, and soon the good professor himself made an appearance, wearing his many-colored rainbow cape and top hat. Peoples of Earth, he called into his microphone. The crowd's noise died down, and he continued. Peoples of Earth, this year you see a real treat for your single dollar. The little-known horse spider people of Con, brought to you across 1,000,000 miles of space at great expense. Gather around, see them, study them, listen to them, tell your friends about them. But hurry, my ship can remain here only 6 hours. And the crowd slowly filed by, at once horrified and fascinated by these strange creatures that looked like horses, but ran up the walls of their cages like spiders. This is certainly worth a dollar, one man remarked, hurrying away. I'm going home to get the wife. All day long it went like that, until 10,000 people had filed by the barred cages set into the side of the spaceship. Then, as the 6-hour limit ran out, Professor Hugo once more took microphone in hand. We must go now, but we will return next year on this date. And if you enjoyed our zoo this year, phone your friends in other cities about it. We will land in New York tomorrow, and next week on to London, Paris, Rome, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, then on to other worlds. He waved farewell to them, and as the ship rose from the ground, the Earth peoples agreed that this had been the very best zoo yet. Some 2 months and 3 planets later, the silver ship of Professor Hugo settled at last onto the familiar jagged rocks of Con, and the queer horse spider creatures filed quickly out of their cages. Professor Hugo was there to say a few parting words, and then they scurried away in 100 different directions, seeking their homes among the rocks. In one, the she creature was happy to see the return of her mate and offspring. She babbled a greeting in the strange tongue and hurried to embrace them. It was a long time you were gone. Was it good? And the he creature nodded. The little one enjoyed it especially. We visited 8 worlds and saw many things. The little one ran up the wall of the cave. On the place called Earth it was the best. The creatures there wear garments over their skins and they walk on 2 legs. But isn't it dangerous? Asked the she creature. No, her mate answered. There are bars to protect us from them. We remain right in the ship. Next time you must come with us. It is well worth the 19 comics it costs. And the little one nodded. It was the very best zoo ever. So here are your footnotes. 1. Interplanetary is an adjective, means between planets. 2. Wonderment, noun, means astonishment. 3. Awe, noun, mixed feelings of fear and wonder. 4. Expense, it's a noun, it's a financial cost. So, I'm going to read each question. If you want to pause the recording after each one to answer, and then press play to continue. Number 1. Why do you infer that the children were always good during the month of August, especially when it began to get near the 23rd? A. It was the start of the school year and kids always are good then. B. They didn't want their parents to keep them from visiting the zoo each year because of bad behavior. C. They wanted to be able to get on the ship to visit the other planets each year, so they avoided getting in trouble. Or D. If they weren't good on the 23rd, they would be locked in the cages with the creatures. Again, pause if you need to. Number 2. How do the 2 different settings impact the story? A, the two settings show that Professor Hugo is manipulating each society. B, the two settings show that in this society, life forms on other planets is possible. C, each of the settings show a different view of who the zoo animals are. Or D, all of the above. Number 3, how does Professor Hugo's character influence the story? A, he is the main focus of the story and it is told from his perspective. B, he holds the creatures captive, which leads the humans to try to rescue them. C, he is a clever showman and his presentation of his zoos show the different perspectives of each planet. D, he is an excellent teacher and many of the planets learn a lot from him. Number 4, from the horse spider creature's perspective, why did they visit 8 worlds with Professor Hugo? A, they were visiting the other worlds to see the creatures in the zoos at each place. B, they were captured by Professor Hugo and showed around as prisoners. C, they were looking for supplies to enhance their own world. Or D, they went to find their long-lost family members. Number 5, what does the following quote show the reader? But isn't it dangerous? Asked the she creature. No, her mate answered. There are bars to protect us from them. A, it shows that the bars aren't actually needed. B, it shows that the creatures felt like they needed to be protected from the humans. C, it shows that the creatures would have seriously hurt the humans without them. D, it shows that they needed to be protected from Professor Hugo. Number 6, which is the best inference from the following? Quote, peoples of Earth, he called into his microphone, this year you see a real treat for your single dollar. The little-known horse spider people of Con. A, ice cream and goodies will be served at the zoo. B, $1 is worth less than it used to be. C, viewing the horse spider will be special for the people. Or D, spending money is always fun. Number 7, the best theme for this short story is A, treat others as you want to be treated. B, space travel should be experienced by all. C, a friend loves at all times. D, things that are just different are sometimes viewed as strange. 8, the supporting detail below that best supports the theme is, so the theme you put in number 7, which one of these supports it? A, on the place called Earth, the creatures wear garments over their skins. B, the little one ran up the wall of the cave. C, my ship can only remain here 6 hours. Or D, the children were always good during the month of August, especially when it began to get near the 23rd. Number 9, what is the meaning of the word comic as it is used in the story? So C-O-M-M-O-C. It's in paragraph 13. It is the word for children on the planet of Con. It is the type of currency used on the planet of Con. It is a type of creature from another planet the horse spiders visited. It is a type of greeting used on the planet of Con. Number 10, how do the footnotes support the analysis of the text? A, they do not help the reader at all. B, they help the reader understand the theme of the passage. C, they let the reader know who wrote the passage. Or D, they help the reader to understand the vocabulary in the passage better. All right, so before you press next, make sure you are secure and confident in your answers, because once you press next, you're going to a new passage. So, once you click next, you're going to this passage. The first one was fiction, this one's nonfiction. The conservation mission of zoos. Zoos do a lot for conservation. There are dedicated species survival programs which have helped species come out of the brink of extinction. Good examples of that being the black-footed ferrets, the red wolves, the Przewalski's wild horse, and the California condors. After 10 years of working to strengthen the population of the endangered California condor, Los Angeles Zoo and San Diego Zoo were able to rebuild a population of fewer than 24 birds to around 170. Successful breeding programs brought the Pierre David's deer back from extinction. Though this Asian deer became extinct in the wild, Chinese and European zoo programs enabled 4 of these deer to be released back into the wild in 1985, where they are now self-sustaining. These are just a few examples. The World Association of Zoos and Aquarium, WAZA, or WAZA's, members are spending nearly $350 million per year on conservation projects in the wild. making WAZA the third largest contributor to conservation in the world. However, certain species have not been so fortunate. Their reintroduction programs have failed for different reasons. Examples of such species include the Andean condor, the western lowland gorilla, the giant panda, and the snow leopard. Of 145 reintroduction programs carried out by zoos in the last century, only 16 truly succeeded in restoring wild animal populations to the wild. Nonetheless, zoos are continuing to make efforts to help endangered species in every way they can. The Guardian newspaper highlighted the top 10 species fighting extinction with the help of zoos. The 9 animals, also included in the 10 was Tanzania's Verdcourt Palathea tree. Chosen from hundreds of zoo-backed conservation programs were the blue-crowned laughing thrush from China, the mountain chicken frog from Dominica, the white-clawed crayfish from the United Kingdom, the Amur leopard from Russia, the Potosi pupfish from Mexico, the Partula snails, French Polynesia, the blue-eyed black lemur from Madagascar, the plowshare tortoise from Madagascar, and the scimitar-horned oryx from North Africa. Number 11. The fiction text Zoo by Edward Hawke does not accurately portray the information in the nonfiction text, The Conservation Mission of Zoos. Which of the following is the best explanation for why? A. Zoo by Edward Hawke is just science fiction and is a crazy story. B. The nonfiction passage, The Conservation Mission of Zoos, provides specific details and information about ways zoos have helped or tried to help species, whereas Zoo by Edward Hawke just makes stuff up. C. The nonfiction passage, The Conservation Mission of Zoos, provides specific details and information about ways zoos have helped or tried to help species. Whereas Zoo by Edward Hawke does mention protecting creatures, it is an intergalactic zoo with strange creatures who visit different planets for a few hours. It simply is not realistic. Or D. The fiction passage is nothing like the nonfiction text. They both talk about zoos, but one is real life and the other is insane. Number 12. What is one way the passages are similar in their approach to zoos? A. They both have people and animals. B. They both refer to keeping the animals/creatures safe. C. They both have exotic horse spiders. Or D. They both focus on the condors. Last question, number 13. The perspective in the nonfiction passage, The Conservation Mission of Zoos, is best stated as A. Zoos work really hard to protect endangered species to help their populations thrive. B. Zoos are terrible places for animals and are removing them from their natural habitats for entertainment. C. Zoos are not doing an effective job at trying to conserve animal species. Or D. Successful breeding programs brought the Pierre David's deer back from extinction. Make sure you check your answers. Go back in the passage. When you feel confident, you may submit.